Hello. I was hoping that this background will work better, but it's a little washed out in the back. But you can still see that I'm sitting under my maple tree in my backyard. And that is because today we're going to be talking about trees, and I love trees. Trees are amazing. And I'm going to try to share that with you with the short amount of time that we have. So if you stick around at the end, I have a surprise for you guys today. So make sure you stay all the way through and don't miss the surprise. Hello, Emma, and hello, Mom. I'm glad you're watching today. So let's get started. So trees are amazing. They've been around forever. They've actually been around for about 370 million years, which is wild. That's long before humans ever showed up. And they live for a very long time. So the oldest single living tree in the whole world is called Old Tajiko. I hope I pronounced that correctly. And it is 9,500 years old, just about, which is amazing. It's a conifer tree, so it's like I forget what specific species of conifer, but they're kind of a more slow-growing tree that takes its time, and so it doesn't kind of run through its life too quickly, run through its resources too quickly. But it's also in Sweden, and Sweden can get cold, and cold climates tend to preserve animals, or to preserve life a little bit longer. For example, a Greenland shark can live to be over 200, which is awesome too. But that is the oldest single tree, so one tree by itself. But the oldest tree ever is a cloning tree. And a cloning tree, it grows by, let's pretend here's the trunk. The trunk goes down, the roots go under the ground, shoots over, and then grows up another tree. So there's two trunks, and they're connected to the same root system. Grass grows similar that way. And there's a tree system in Utah, and it's all aspen trees, and it is estimated 80,000 years old, which is amazing. Hello, Red Rabbit, and hello to my grandmother. So yeah, this tree in Utah, this 80,000-year-old tree, is called Pando. I encourage you guys to look it up. It's an aspen tree, so it looks like a white birch, but it doesn't have the peely bark, and it's absolutely beautiful. So check it out. Some people have been commenting on my background. I'm glad you like it. I think it's kind of cool too. Trees actually have a lot of uses for humans. We can develop a relationship with them that way. And the first one, and the reason that I'm going to mention, the first one I'll mention, and the reason why I'm sitting under this tree is because trees provide food for us. And I don't have an apple tree, so I couldn't do, that's like a good staple food from a tree. But this one is a maple tree. And maple trees give us maple syrup. And it's really cool how that happens. So let's go here. So we have our leaf, and the sunlight hits the leaf, and that sunlight gets converted into sugar, and the sugar travels all the way up through the branches, down into the ground, and is stored there all winter. And then once it gets warm, that sugar starts to get pumped up, and we catch it right here and drain it into our buckets, and then we boil that out, boil the water out of it, and all that's left is the sugar, and then we put it on our pancakes. And what's a beautiful thought with maple syrup is that you're basically eating the sun energy from last year. It's a nice way to think of it. So, apples, syrup are some of the ways that we use trees. We also use them for building. And this tree that's behind me, oh my gosh, it's so big. And it's right in front of the sun. This tree was actually my Christmas tree in the mid-90s, I think 1996. This is a spruce tree. And spruce, if anybody here plays guitar, it's a common wood type that's used for the front wood of a guitar. So that's pretty cool, actually. Now, trees also have psychological effects on us too. Spending time in nature, spending time around trees is actually very relaxing. It can lower your levels of cortisol, which helps to return your body to a state of homeostasis and really relax you, actually. So even something as simple as going out for a walk in the woods, sitting by a tree, even spending time in a backyard can really help calm your nerves. And I try to do that as much as I can. I wanted to stop by this tree here. This tree is called a white cedar, and I'm not too certain on the uses of white cedar, but I know red cedar is common for building as well. We actually have that for the playground at Woodcock Nature Center. The playground is made from red cedar, and that is because it has a smell that actually smells delightful to humans. But it doesn't smell good to bugs. So bugs don't infest it and chew it and eat it up. So it preserves for a long time, which is nice. And of course, you can't forget that trees provide oxygen for us. They call the rainforest down in South America the lungs of the earth for a reason. It's providing us with oxygen. So even just spending time under a tree on a not so windy day like today, that oxygen just kind of pours down on you. Oh, gotta love it. So this tree that I want to show you here is called an eastern hemlock tree. And it's not like the hemlock that Socrates ate. Don't worry, it's not poisonous. In fact, it's medicinal. Conifer trees like this are high in vitamin C and help to alleviate fevers and chest congestion. My mind is somewhere else today. Fevers and chest congestion. So like Native American tribes and cultures used to use this. They would boil it in a tea, and people still do it today. I do it today. Not so much with this one, more with the next plant I'm going to show you. But and even just the smell of conifers, is so relaxing. And it has some of those psychological effects that I mentioned earlier. And this one too is another conifer. This one's in my front yard. Mr. Sam's talking about the front yard and backyard nature. You can't even see it. This is white pine. And white pine, you can tell because it has these long pine needles, and if you were to pluck one of these off, it would have 5 needles per cluster. And this one I use a lot. This one too, it smells really nice, especially the sap. And but I like to take these needles off and put them in my tea. If I'm having like chamomile tea or something, or lemon ginger, I'll put this in, and it's an extra added boost of vitamin C. There's a lot of vitamin C in these needles, which is good for your immune system and may help in times like these when we're trying to stay healthy. And now is an especially good time of year to be doing that, because like I said with the maple syrup, all that energy is being pumped up into the leaves right now. In fact, you can see, no, maybe not, that little bud there is just new plant growth. So all the energy is in this part of the plant right now. So if you were to pluck off some of these, just a little, you really don't need a lot, and put them in your tea, it's an excellent source of vitamin C. I rhymed. Hello, Sarah. Okay, so if anybody has any questions so far, please feel free to ask me. I will do the best I can to answer, and if I don't know, then I will go back after this video, look it up and tell you, and then you learn something and I learn something, which is nice. So I have one last thing to talk about before the surprise, which is actually that trees live very exciting lives. Did you know that trees can talk to each other? So they don't have mouths. They're not just going to like babble away. Oh, there's my wind chime. But trees can talk to each other through their roots, and they have a symbiotic relationship with a fungus, or like a mushroom, which is wild, lives down in the dirt, and they can send information and resources from one tree to the next. So let's say, for example, that this tree, we're back at our maple tree, is being attacked by bugs that like to eat the leaves. That's not good. So it sends a message, a chemical message, either through the air or through the roots, that goes underground and over to this tree, over to this maple tree, and says, hey, I'm being attacked by bugs, just want to let you know. And this tree's like, thank you, and creates a chemical that tastes disgusting to bugs. And so the bugs go over there and they're like, hey, let's eat these leaves. And then they're like, oh, these leaves don't taste good. And this tree is saved because this first tree said, protect yourself. And they do that for bugs. They do that for deer. It's pretty cool how that works. They also share resources. So this tree, since it's bigger and captures more light and makes more sugar, it can share some of that sugar with the smaller maple tree, so that they can both survive. Now, it is in the tree's interest to cooperate with each other, but that's not always the case. They do compete with each other. So, a classic example of this is if you're ever walking through the woods. I'm going to take my seat again here. So, if you're ever walking through the woods on a trail and you see a whole bunch of little trees that are just kind of hanging out underneath the big trees, they're not very big, they don't have many leaves, and they've been that way for a long time. That's just the way it's going to be for decades, really. Trees live their lives similarly to how we do in the sense that they grow up, but it's very slow motion. It's like over decades and centuries. So let's say, for example, I'm a little tree and this big mother tree falls over, and now there's a huge space of light that is available. But I'm not the only little tree. I gotta beat out all the other ones. So I gotta see if I can grow fast. And if I don't reach the sky fast enough, if I don't reach and grow above the other trees fast enough, then I'm not gonna, the other trees would survive, and I would be stuck without light. So there's a lot of competition. I've also heard of trees growing inside of other trees, which is wild. They grow inside and essentially steal all the nutrients, and the outside tree dies off, and then the inside tree continues to absorb the nutrients from the outside tree. Ruthless, I tell you. They have crazy lives. And again, while I'm talking about this, I put in the description of this video a book recommendation that I think goes way more in depth of what I'm talking about today, and I think you guys would really like it. It's called The Hidden Life of Trees by Peter Wohlleben. He's a German author, and it's so interesting. It's so interesting if this stuff really captures your interest. But yeah, so they do compete, but most cases they're going to cooperate with each other, and it's in their interest to cooperate with each other because they can regulate and control and benefit from each other so much that it's just a good idea. So for example, in a forest system, they actually can control the climate underneath their canopy. So the canopy is the top part. And underneath, in the hot summer, they can make it nice and cool. And in the cold winter, they can regulate that heat and keep it warmer. So it helps to create a more ideal situation for the plants to grow. And I don't know if you might notice this now that I've pointed it out, but if you're ever walking in a field and you see a tree, the tree isn't that tall. It's more wide and broad than it is tall. But in a forest, they actually grow pretty tall and narrow, and then the canopy kind of pulls up at the top. Now, a tree's not going to grow tall and narrow by itself because if there's any strong wind gusts, it's just going to fall right over. So the trees actually work together to help each other grow taller. So even the presence of other trees affects how it grows. I want to see if I can show you this here. So this is the maple tree, and it's kind of short relatively and wide. I had to back up really far here. But if you look way off into my neighbor's yard, the trees over there are very tall and narrow, and that's more of a forest. Hey, and there's my cat. It's not your house, come back. So trees being together can actually affect how they grow, which is crazy, I think. And the last thing that I'll tell you, and then I'll give you one more fun fact, is that the root system, they actually, like I said earlier, they can share resources with each other. They also can help prevent erosion, so they keep the soil intact if they're together. So it's in their interest to keep each other alive. And that includes a story I heard actually of a tree stump. So somebody had come and chopped this tree down, so it was just a stump. But then these researchers came afterwards and tested the wood and found out that the tree was still alive. And it has no leaves, it's not making its own food. It's being fed by the trees around it because the trees work together to survive. And that includes the little stumps. So there's a life lesson in that, which I'll let you find. All right, one last little fun fact for you guys, and then we'll go do our surprise. And the fun fact is, let's see if I can find a good example for you. So trees actually can be used as compasses, and I think that this is actually amazing. A lot of plants can do this actually. So they want to lean towards the light, and the light is the strongest at the middle of the day around noon. And at noon, the sun is pretty much in the southern part of the sky for the northern hemisphere like us. So the trees actually angle themselves towards south, and you can see the branches are more horizontal on the southern side and more vertical on the northern side. So I'm going to show you this Japanese red maple. And take a look, see how it's kind of angled this way. So this branch is a little flatter, and that one is a little more vertical, and it's leaning towards south. Or I'll come over here and show you. This one is a little sassafras that we planted a few years ago. But this one is pretty good. It's showing this little branch pointing right towards south. So take a look when you're out, and this is more exaggerated in like fields and stuff when it's just a tree growing by itself. Take a look at these trees and see kind of which way it's angled towards, and you'll see that actually they're pointing you the way. If you need to go south, at least they're pointing you the way. All right, enough about trees, Mr. Sam. Let's show our surprise. And the surprise involves me going inside through the house. So now I'm actually in my garage. All right, here we go. They're baby chicks. So we have 7 new baby chicks, and we're gonna keep 5 of them. 2 of them are going to our neighbors. We have names for some of them, but not all of them. So if anybody has some fun name recommendations, that would be fun. We have, I don't know how to show them to you without, let's see. It's okay, little girls. They're like, what is this thing? If we wait just a moment, they'll probably come up. So the one that you're seeing right now, the black one, we call that one Circle Head, and that's because she has this light patch on her head that's in a circle. The one next to her is Line Head, because hers is a line. We can't tell the difference between all the light ones right now, so we just call them whatever we want at this moment. And then we have 2 black ones, full black ones. One is called Cleopatra, and the other one is unnamed. So let's see if I turn the camera around here. So this red light, the reason why we have the red light is actually the heat lamp. The heat lamp keeps them warm because they can't create enough of their own body heat right now. And we actually need to keep them at 95 to 100 degrees in here, which has been a little more challenging than we have had to deal with in the past. But let's see if I can get a close-up of one. Boop. Here we go. This one, focus. This is Cleopatra. And we named her Cleopatra because it looks like she has that eye makeup on the back of her eye. Hello. And they have their food over here. That's circle head. See the circle on her head? That one we don't have a name for, the black one. And then the two yellow ones we don't. Here's lion head. So Jana asks, how long will they stay under the red light? So they're going to stay under the red light until the outside temperature matches the temperature that they need to be at. So after 2 weeks, we will start lowering the temperature about 5 degrees each week. And then once the outside temperature matches where they need to be, we can take away the light. So this week they still need to be 95 to 100, but next week we can tone it back to 90, and then the week after that 85. And the outside temperature next week is supposed to be in the 60s and 70s, so it's still too early to keep them, or to bring them outside. But I mean, once we bring them outside, then that'll be easy enough. It'll be easier to control their temperature too, because they'll just go with the outside climate. But we also need to separate them from the other chickens that we have right now, because there's an adjustment period. You kind of have to introduce them in a way that if we were to just plop them in with the chickens would probably attack them as adults. So we have to put them in the run, but we block them off so that they can see each other, but they can't hurt each other. And then over time, we slowly adjust them to each other. But that's not probably for a month or two. Sarah asks, do they need special food when they're young? And the answer is yes, they do. We have this food here. It's small and like a crumble size so that they can fit it in their little mouths. But it's also medicated, and it's filled with all the nutrients and stuff that they need, including calcium and stuff, which is what I mentioned when we did the chicken episode. We give our adult chickens, I mean, there's calcium in their food too, but we also give them crushed eggshells. So we gave them this mirror because they were pecking at each other, so we figured why not just have them peck at themselves, and then they can't hurt each other. And they still peck at each other, but I mean, that's normal. Is like, I don't know. But if anybody wants to sing Reflection from Mulan, now's the time. Who is that chick I see? Oh, never mind. She didn't like my singing. Callie asks, why do you use a heat lamp with a red light instead of a colorless heat lamp? Because we have style, Callie. It's just the one that we had. I mean, it's a personal preference. But the red light doesn't bother the chicks. Red light's a soft light too, so they can sleep. And it's a little exaggerated with this camera, but it's not too bad. And during the day, we have light coming in through the windows, so I don't know. It's not as exaggerated as it doesn't look like they're sitting in lava like it does on this video camera. So, all right. I guess I'll sign off from my garage here if there's no other questions. Thank Thank you everybody for watching. I hope you learned a lot about trees, and I hope you enjoyed my surprise. And I can show you guys more of the chick's process of growing, if that's something that you guys would like. Yeah. I just realized I forgot to put the donate button on, but I'll put it on after. For everybody who's donated, we really appreciate it, and it helps us out a lot. Stay tuned for Allegra's video next week when not next week, tomorrow at 4, and she's gonna take Tank the snapping turtle for a walk. And I've done that before, it's lots of fun. So don't miss that one. All right, thank you everybody.